Open up the door, it's Dave!
Who?
Dave! D-A-V-E!
Dave?
Right, man, Dave.
Dave's not here!
Over the weekend, SpaceX made its second attempt at launching Starship. Starship is the largest space man-made vehicle that we've ever had. It's incredible with the amount of power and thrust that it has, the things that it can do, and it allows us, or would allow us, to get into a higher Earth orbit or potentially to explore deep space. Now, there's some talk about the potential to leave some fuel in space on a booster rocket, basically, so that a vehicle could link up to it somehow and then be able to go to deeper space more efficiently. Remember that the most important thing when it comes to space travel is the escape velocity. Leaving the Earth takes the most amount of energy, but once you're in space, the rules are different because you have no gravity that you're ever trying to overcome. So it's an intriguing concept, this idea of Starship. Now, the other part to this is reusability. The objective is to take the booster rocket and return it to Earth, much as they do the Falcon 9s today, the way they have them land back on Earth. But then also to take the space capsule and have it have the ability to land back on Earth as well. During the Apollo missions, we figured out that the easiest way to get humans back to Earth was to have them splash down in the water because of the way you have the larger area that you can work with and have a relatively softer landing than landing on the ground. Works. And we still use it today with the Falcon Dragon capsules. But the objective is to be able to land the humans back on a landing pad, basically where they took off, so then you can take them out of the craft at that point. So there's a lot of reusability in there because there's a cost associated with recovery. So why not see if you can reuse these things and have them land back where they started? So it's really creative that way. So the attempt was to have the booster rocket take the capsule up into space. The booster rocket would return, and the capsule would actually take off from Texas and land in Hawaii. So it would actually go into low Earth orbit and then come back down and land somewhere else. Now, the interesting thing to me is there was a theoretical notion that you could improve the time to travel to somewhere by simply launching a rocket directly up, letting the Earth revolve underneath you, and then bringing it back down. So in theory, you could cut the travel time between destinations to minutes, perhaps, maybe as much as an hour, to go to any points on the Earth. And it's kind of cool that we're actually testing that in a way, because if this worked, then it was going to show that you could theoretically do that. Now, that could change the nature of air travel as well, if you think about it. Now, is what I'm proposing really that far-fetched? No, in fact, Elon Musk actually suggested it in 2017, talking about city-to-city travel. And he had SpaceX create a promotional video where they had people leaving New York, getting on a boat and going out to a barge where there's a rocket ready to take off. That rocket then takes off and goes to a different destination by going into space, having the capsule separate. It goes across to another location and then lands in that location. So effectively, you've got city-to-city transportation happening. So he had the idea already theoretically in his mind, and now we're actually kind of testing it out for him to see how it works. So in real time, we're seeing this kind of play out. This is why he's doing this. There's some tie to it, and there's something he's interested in doing, perhaps innovating, perhaps taking us further. I'm not sure exactly, but if you think about it, what he's showing here in this promotional video is that you can get to different destinations in under an hour. And theoretically, it's really intriguing. Now, one other point about this, he actually also proposed that you could take weapons and military equipment across the globe in the same way. Instead of a 15-hour cargo plane ride, it could be a 1-hour trip between Cape Canaveral and, say, Afghanistan. So you really open up the possibilities, and there's a lot of money to be made with the military in that sense. So it's actually more than just testing the rocket. It's actually testing a theoretical thing that allows us to take off and land in a different destination while the Earth rotates underneath us. There's something cool about that. Anyway, so on Saturday this past week, they actually took the second Starship and launched it. And in this case, all 33 Raptor engines lit, which was a huge improvement over the last time where I think 7 of them didn't ignite. So you had all 33 ignite. And so it actually launched. It took off. It went up into space. It actually went to the altitude that they wanted it to get to. And then it was time for the booster rocket to separate. Now, Here's where they did something different they'd never done before. They call it hot staging, and that's where they ignite the engines on the second stage where the capsule is before they've turned off the engines on the first stage and done the stage separation. Now, this is an intriguing concept because you can actually get more thrust and more velocity because you're not losing. When you turn off the rockets and you actually separate, you're actually losing a little bit of velocity and a little bit of the thrust you have. So by actually doing the hot staging, you actually gain momentum and you actually get a little bit more energy out of it. So the idea is very cool, and they were able to do that. They were able to ignite the rockets that they wanted to on the second stage, and they were able to separate the first stage and have it start returning to Earth. Now here's where the first problem came in. Apparently the heat during this operation caused some damage inside the first stage. So you had this rapid, unexpected disassembly, another great word. I love the way they use these kind of funny terms. NASA engineers have long done that. SpaceX engineers, having been formerly with NASA, kind of continue that fine tradition. And so they had this disassembly that happened, and it exploded in space. And it was really kind of an interesting thing to see when you realize what happened there. That in all likelihood, it started to make its turn, it started to return to Earth, everything seemed to be going well, but apparently the heat from that hot swap actually caused some damage somewhere along the way. Now, we'll know more later what exactly happened, but they learned something from it, and that's the cool part. They were trying something new they'd never tried before. They figured, why not at this point? They know they can return it to Earth because they've done that already. The rockets ignited exactly as they expected to on both stages, so that everything was going according to plan, except for this disassembly that happened.
Now, we did know that that hot staging was going to be incredibly dynamic. We knew that there was a chance that the booster would not survive, but we're going to take that data and figure out how we can make the booster better for the next hot stage.
So it happened, but it was really, really cool. Now, there's an interesting side note here that the National Weather Service in its satellite radar was able to pick up the debris field as it was coming back to Earth, which is kind of cool in its own way. Anyway, the second stage continued to make its way toward orbit, and they actually reached the altitude they wanted to reach, or very close to it anyway. And then they lost the signal. They were no longer receiving any data or telemetry or any information from that second stage with the capsule on it. And no one was sure what was going on for a few moments. Look, it was a morning launch. There was a lot of sun coming in. You couldn't really see the rocket at some point as it angled up toward the sun a little bit, so you couldn't really see what happened. There was a hint that maybe another one of these rapid, unexpected disassemblies happened, but no one was really sure. And then they started talking about maybe that's what happened. And then, sure enough, that is exactly what happened, and they realized that something went wrong with the rocket, and it actually triggered its own self-destruct mechanism, which is kind of interesting. You don't expect that to happen, but apparently it did in this case. And the rocket actually exploded in space. And again, the National Weather Service provides some pictures of what the debris field looks like, which is another piece of evidence that will help them understand what's going on and what happened and what went wrong. As they review this and the telemetry data and everything else, they'll figure out what happened exactly. There are no theories at this point about what happened. It may have been some computer glitch or some mechanical failure. No one's really sure. It happened internally in the system. It just had some sort of an overload, and it self-destructed because there was no command sent to it or nothing happened. Now, a good thing that happened here was we know that the system works exactly as you expect it to, and you can actually destroy the rocket if you need to. Not that you would ever want to do that with humans on board, of course, but you can see that the computer system worked and everything was functioning as expected. So that's kind of cool in its own way. So was there success? I would argue there was. You got a lot of things that happened right. A lot of things went well. They were able to test some different things and learn from them. Now we'll see what happens when they actually get ready to learn again. What's the next step? What's the next evolutionary step? Can they get it to work again the next time and fully complete the mission? And my guess is maybe not on the third time, but by the fourth time, I think they will. I think they'll be able to complete the mission and all the objectives they set forth. I think they're at a state now where they're almost ready to get there. They'll just need a little bit more work to actually have it happen. So that's my take on it. And I was just fascinated by the whole story and so many things going on and so much happening. It was remarkable that they were able to get as far as they were. And I look forward to seeing what they do next. By the way, the first launch, one of the other problems they had, and one of the things that delayed them from having a second launch, was that the amount of debris that they had at the launch site was so bad, and there was so much damage caused that they were worried about the environmental impact. So SpaceX installed a water-based system, much like they have at the Space Center, to when rockets launch, the water system is really for sound suppression as much as anything. But what that does is it actually causes less vibration that caused damage. So at SpaceX in Boca Chica, they're doing something similar, and it actually has a similar effect. So it was actually pretty good, and there was less environmental damage. Now, there is some question about how much of that debris will come down and rain down on the Earth and maybe cause some other damage. It's already, of course, by this point already come down, and they know. But that may cause them to be delayed in what they're doing again, because they may have to review the environmental impacts of what's going on there. But that's a risk you're willing to take. A lot of it burned up sort of in the atmosphere, part of it on its way down. It was mostly over open water. It is a small, they're all small objects falling to the Earth, so it's unlikely it caused much major damage, but we'll see what happens. It's kind of an interesting thing that went on there. Anyway, that's my story about SpaceX's second Starship launch, and it is pretty cool.
What's your point, David?